Welcome to Copytraders Club, where you can learn how to make more money copy trading. I'm Gavin McCauley, my name and username on eToro. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. Today we chat to a PI who has had stellar recent results, is building a community of eTorians in Singapore, and is perhaps the most copier accessible PI there is. Here we go. Episode 21 of Copytraders Club, and a quick note before we meet today's guest. You know, I don't want to pester you every episode with pleas for likes and subscribes, but I'm supposed to be throwing that in now and then. So, if you enjoy the podcast, please tell any friends that you know who are also interested in eToro. You can also share your favorite episode with a friend. I haven't asked for reviews yet either, and I'm probably supposed to be doing that too. So if you listen on Apple or Audible, as I've just found out we're on, please take 2 minutes to give Copytraders Club a quick review. You can hit pause and do that right now. No time like the present. So on with today's episode. Today we talk to a globe-trotting West Londoner who has settled out in the East. It's Bees84, otherwise known as Steven Budgen. I can see him smiling and waving from the back of the limo, drinking the last of the complimentary champagne. Here he comes now. Steven, hello. Welcome to Copytraders Club.
Hello, Gavin.
Hello, Steven. It's great to have you. Now, we're just about to go through into the VIP lounge where we can sit and relax and have our chat. But before we do so, we need to get past reception via a series of quickfire questions. Ready?
I'm ready.
Username on eToro.
Bees84.
Date you joined eToro.
September 2017.
Year of birth.
1984.
Place of residence.
Singapore.
Profession.
Professional investor.
Briefly state what you aim to achieve on eToro.
My short-term goal is to become a elite pro investor and get over 10 million assets under management. And my long-term goal is to be in the top 10 popular investors on eToro.
Name one of your investing heroes.
Bill Ackman.
Name one of your favourite investing books.
The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth.
That completes the formalities. Let's proceed now into our VIP section here at the clubhouse. The splendid Copytraders Lounge awaits you. Steven Budgen, aka Bees84, are you ready for this magical transition?
I was born ready.
Here we are now in the Copytraders Lounge. Steven, you just relax, put your feet up, sit back on the chaise longue, and we'll have a good old chin wag.
Okay.
So you're in Singapore. You're the third Singapore-based guest we've had on the show.
Okay.
It seems the Lion City is very well represented on this show, as it is on eToro, in fact.
It is. There's a lot of people on eToro in Singapore and a lot of popular investors, both expatriates and local Singaporeans.
And you've lived all over the place as an expat, haven't you?
I have. I've lived in over 7 countries in 15 years. So a lot of traveling, a lot of getting to know new cultures, meeting new people, and really pulling myself out of my comfort zone.
Speaking of which, you learned how to speak Mandarin, I believe.
I did. It was actually a really interesting story, Gavin, actually, because So I grew up my whole childhood in the UK. So I'm from London originally. And I went to university and I graduated my studies in marketing. And I worked for a short period of time in the UK. And I decided to do, I wanted the biggest challenge that I possibly could have at the time. And I thought, what can I possibly do? I wanted to travel. I had the travel bug, but I wanted to do something kind of useful and something that would, do well for me in the long term. So I actually decided to move to the very north of China, near Russia, and I actually studied the Mandarin language at university for a period of time. And I went somewhere where nobody spoke any English, and I didn't speak a word of Chinese at the time. So it was a real challenge, but a real learning by immersification and a real kind of experience. And it really kind of taught me to how to actually step out of my comfort zone and thrive.
Yeah, you've no choice but to learn the language in those circumstances.
Yeah.
But you must have gone through periods of isolation.
Yeah, it was very difficult actually. Even when I was studying the language, I was studying with Russians or with South Koreans, and they didn't speak English. So the only way we could actually communicate with each other was Chinese, and we were all learning at the time, and we were all at quite low levels at the time. So it was kind of a case where you had to learn in order to be able to not feel isolated and be able to communicate with both Chinese and also with classmates. And also, it was sink or swim as well, because you jump in a taxi or you go to food, you don't eat or you don't get somewhere unless you do learn those key words. So yeah, you really get kind of thrown in the deep end.
One question I often ask about when talking to PIs is about the provenance of their username. But I don't need to ask you, because my team of researchers here tell me that you, since the age of 4, have been a fan of Brentford FC. Or should I call them Premier League team, Brentford FC?
That is very true. And you have some really good researchers. Not many people knew Brentford. We were a very small team throughout the years. But now we're on everybody's radar because we've just been promoted to the Premier League for the first time in 75 years.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations. As a lifelong fan, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I've been to see Brentford in some very small stadiums in League Two, so it's actually feels surreal for us to be in the Premier League for the first time.
And so Brentford now play in the Brentford Community Stadium, which is owned by the Bees.
Yes.
I should explain. The Brentford FC are known as the Bees, hence your username, Bees84.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Brentford Community Stadium says it all. A small club with roots in the community, getting a seat at the big table. Gotta love that.
Yes, it's a real underdog story.
Yeah, well done. But the downside of being an English football fan is, of course, the sad disappointment that comes with being an England football fan. Always having your expectations of silverware, despite all the evidence and time after time having your dreams crushed. Now, hold on. As we are talking, news has just come through that England are to face Germany in the next round of the Euros. How are you feeling about that?
Playing Germany is always a very difficult tie. I'm sure that the Germans have been practicing their penalties very studiously, and I hope Gareth Southgate has as well.
Well, he's famous for being a good penalty taker.
Not.
So speaking of sporting endeavour, did I also see that you ran the London Marathon?
Oh, I did run the London Marathon. It was quite a long time ago now. But yes, I ran the London Marathon in 2007.
Wow, good effort. How was that?
It was a really great challenge. Had to train a lot. And yeah, I did a lot of training and I really enjoyed it. Not only was it a good atmosphere, but it was also, a real amazing achievement and buzz. So yeah, it was great.
Did your nipples bleed?
They didn't bleed, but they were a little bit sore, and I had to put some plasters on them before racing.
This is the kind of detail people listen to the podcast for.
Yeah.
So how did I come across you? It's a question not sure I have the answer to. I think it was organically on eToro. Perhaps you've been on Editor's Choice, have you?
I've never been on Editor's Choice, actually.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I don't know where it was from, but I'm delighted to have come across you. It wasn't through Felix Felix, although I see you've just been featured.
I have, yeah, a few weeks ago.
Okay, let's have a question from the art of people. Can you pick a number between 1 and 10?
2.
If you had enough money to retire and then some, what would you be doing?
I would still be investing, but I would be helping people as much as possible. So I would probably do a lot of kind of philanthropy work, and I would be, I think I'd be helping and teaching people potentially about investing as well, because I think it's a really important life skill that I think everybody needs to learn.
Now let's turn to your bio, Stephen. Would you like to read it out for us?
Yes, I can. Final 2020 year results, 205% profit. No leverage. About me, British, living in Singapore, full-time investor, 14 years managerial experience in different sectors and countries, UK, China, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Malaysia, and Singapore. 11 years investing experience with an interest in crypto, stocks, commodities, and Forex. I won't add funds. Strategy is I'm a multi-strategy investor with a mid-long-term holding strategy. I hold from weeks to multiple years. I do vast due diligence. And I have 3 goals for the Popular Investor Program. 1, provide good returns. 2, provide strong communications and analysis. And 3, provide free investor education to make you better investors. Copy instructions, minimum copy amount $500. Copy long-term. Copy open trades. And then a series of links to my social media, my YouTube, and my fact sheet.
Okay, let's get into some of that, shall we?
Yeah.
You describe yourself as a mid to long-term value investor. When I first looked at your profile, I read that. Then I went to see what was in your portfolio, and there was a ton of crypto, more so than there is today. Back then, I think it was over 50%. You might correct me on that. It was a few months ago. So I thought I'd misread and went back to reread your bio just to check what it said. So why is it not a contradiction to call yourself a value investor, but be heavy in crypto?
Well, I have a very specific strategy with crypto that the longer that we actually go in the actual crypto cycle, because crypto goes into cycles in line with the kind of Bitcoin halving. And as crypto prices increase, I actually reduce and trim my core crypto positions over time. So that's kind of answers your question on why it's reduced. My crypto exposure has reduced over time. And I expect that also to evolve and to reduce some more over time as we hit certain crypto prices. I have a very diversified portfolio, as you can see. There's really kind of a mix of kind of value stocks as well as technology, and also some traditional value stocks as well.
Yeah, when it comes to your stocks, I can see that that's a description that applies. My question's more on where does crypto fit into the value investor mindset? As the name implies, a key element of value investing is buying when the stock is cheap. This is done by estimating the intrinsic value of a stock and then buying when the current price presents a sufficient margin of safety. So how do you estimate the intrinsic value of a crypto asset is really what I'm getting at.
Okay, so I use a number of different metrics for cryptocurrency. One thing I look at is on-chain metrics for crypto and for Bitcoin in particular. So I look at the kind of the health of the network. So how many transactions are actually taking place on the blockchain. I also look at inflows and outflows of Bitcoin to exchanges, for example, and outflows to private wallets as well, which also shows some of the health of Bitcoin as well. I also look at other things such as the number of new wallets, which shows that obviously as it's growing, there should be more and more. Those are some of the kind of metrics. I also look at how long people have held particular Bitcoin for and how long they've been in their wallet for and how often those have moved as well. So that's a kind of a key way of seeing the health of Bitcoin. I also look at other things, other models as well, such as stock to flow model as well. Bitcoin has a predetermined supply that's given to miners in the terms of mining rewards. And every 4 years, those are halved. So the new supply of Bitcoin is actually already predetermined. So obviously, I also make sure that the increase in demand is also there. And then I look to see over time as the demand goes up. And we've seen a lot of demand from hedge funds, institutions, corporate companies as well, actually buying into Bitcoin and other crypto assets. Then that puts a lot of upward pressure over the long term into the price after the supply shock from the halving. So I look at a number of different elements in terms of crypto and how I value. I also look at some technical analysis elements as well, but I'm kind of much more concentrated on the overall health of the crypto infrastructure. And I spent a lot of time, especially in the crypto winter of 2018 and 2019, doing a lot of research on specific projects and making a lot of investments. I think that's kind of served me very well, as it took a bit of time for the interest to pick up in crypto, and then the prices obviously followed suit after that as well.
Yeah, you see, I'm very new to crypto. I've just started to dip my toe, and I sort of think that I come from a background of value investing. And I can make some sort of educated guesstimate at intrinsic value of a company.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what the ingredients are to come to that conclusion. I've got no idea how to build a picture of what is the intrinsic value of a cryptocurrency. I can see what the price is doing. I can see it was cheaper than 2 months ago. And I understand some of your answer in terms of demand and institutional uptake and so forth. But there must be a fundamental difference between putting a price on a company and putting a price on a crypto asset, right?
There is a complete difference. So obviously a stock or a company has, a certain amount of revenue, they have gross profit, they have a number of different cash flow elements as well, which it makes it easier to come out at a valuation for the stock. With crypto, it's a little bit more difficult. It's very difficult to come up with an exact price. It's a little bit like trying to value gold or silver or another kind of commodity element or real estate even, where you have to look at lots of stuff such as, the supply and the demand, the interest. There's a lot of different elements and how much it's used, the future roadmap, where are they looking to go, what niches are they looking to be involved in terms of use cases. So you've kind of got to put all that together. It's very difficult to come up with an exact price. But if you kind of combine lots of different elements, then you can get a good idea, especially of the direction that the price will go in over the long term. Of course, there's a lot of volatility. Prices do go up and down, and it is a relatively new asset class. So it is affected a little bit more by kind of media and by high profile individuals, as we saw recently with Elon Musk and some of his comments. But then at the same time, I don't think it's that much different from the stock market because, everybody is latching on to every word that Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, is saying to do with interest rates and inflation. Obviously, with a new asset class, it's going to be a little bit more sensitive, but it also has a lot of room to grow as a new asset class.
Yeah, I watched a YouTube video just today, an hour ago, made by the channel. It's a guy called Nathan, Investing Made Simple. He seems to be of the belief that this is the last great opportunity to buy crypto because of all the institutional uptake. It's now or never.
I have a slightly differing opinion. I think that we're still in the early innings of crypto. And even Bitcoin, Bitcoin's been going for over 11 years now. It's actually grown, one, in terms of price, but also in terms of the actual health of the network and the use cases, and also the uptake of people that are involved in Bitcoin has actually increased over time. I think that we're still pretty early. I think that there are some institutional investors that are involved, but only a small percentage of them at the moment they're actually involved. If we look at the inflows of money that's going to come into crypto, I think we're going to have a big wall of money come into crypto. And I think the majority of that will go into Bitcoin and Ethereum at the beginning. But, I don't think we've scratched the surface yet because we have just a few corporate companies that are involved in Bitcoin now, such as Tesla and Square. There's many corporate companies out there that I think are going to take a position in Bitcoin, especially because of the inflation issues that we're kind of currently faced with. And then there's a lot of conservative types of money inflow that's going to take a while to happen as well, such as pension funds, which are obviously very conservative by nature. I think they're going to take small positions initially, and I think those will increase over time. So I think we still have a long way to run in the Bitcoin cycle. And we've also seen, government states actually get involved as well. So El Salvador have just announced it as the legal tender in the country as well. And I don't think they're going to be the last country to do it as well, because many countries have citizens that don't have access to banking like we have in the Western world. I think in El Salvador, there's only 30% of the country have actually access to opening up a bank account. So to be able to have a Bitcoin wallet in your cell phone and finally have a means of payment outside of, burying your money under a pillow, I think it's really, really great. And I think a lot of countries will adopt it over time, both as a treasury reserve and also in certain cases to spend and to use, like El Salvador's doing.
Okay, let's get back to your results. Over the past few years, recent results have been incredible. Historical results, not quite so great. What would you say to the uncharitable view that your stats just show someone who fortuitously rode the twin waves of crypto and the 2020 bull market? I say an uncharitable view, not mine. But what would you say to that?
Okay, so I would say it's not fortuitous, and I'll explain a little bit about that. Why? I'm very transparent with my copiers and with my followers, so I've said this to them previously in the past. But I've actually only been a popular investor since 2020. I've been on eToro since 2017, but I did use eToro mainly as a long-term crypto account, which I had all of my stocks on my private brokerage account. So I had no copiers at the time from 2017 to 2020. During the 2018 crypto winter, I was actually buying a lot of crypto towards the lows, and that obviously paid off really well for me. But I think that the results were actually quite good. In 2017, I actually made a big profit. I think it was around 300%. Obviously, 2018 was a very difficult year for crypto as a whole. There was a lot of enthusiasm in 2017, but a lot of the projects were in their very early idea stage and they weren't ready for adoption. And as some of the limelight went away and some of the interest went away, obviously the prices went down as well. But I really use this as a really great opportunity to actually accumulate more crypto during this time. I think that there's a lot of perception that there's a margin of safety when the prices go up, when actually it's the opposite. When the prices are low and you feel like these projects are going to be really great in the long term, this is generally the best time to buy. And I think it's really important that I actually went through that period. And I think that I set myself up really well for the last couple of years as well. But since that, obviously, I became a popular investor in 2020, and my strategy has changed a lot over time. So it's very important for me to not only make gains for my copiers, but also to try and help protect the capital. I think this is another big reason why that I've reduced my crypto exposure as time goes on and as the cycle progress and as the prices have increased. I've trimmed a lot of my positions and diversified into stocks and other assets such as precious metals, etc., and different geographical regions in order to have a more diversified portfolio.
So when in 2020 did you become a PI?
June 2020.
Okay. So the message is really that copiers will be getting the Steven Budgen from then until now, as opposed to the Steven Budgen who was active in 2018 in the crypto winter.
Yes. I have a very kind of clear strategy at the moment, which I plan to stick to. I'm very disciplined. And as I said, their crypto exposure will reduce over time. It's going to be more of an evolution rather than a revolution. I already have a lot of diversification in my portfolio, but that will increase over time.
Okay, we'll get into your diversified portfolio a little bit later. I mentioned earlier what an uncharitable view of your monthly and annual stats would have been like. And we also mentioned Felix Felix. Not that I'm equating him with being uncharitable, but, occasionally he does point out these things. And I think you must have caught him on a good day because he was so complimentary about you as a PI, whereas I've seen him address PIs with similar historical profiles and say, we can discount those years because of XYZ. That means we've only got 12 months to go on. That's not enough. We've no idea if this guy's any good or not. I think the difference lies in the quality of your communications. Because of your communications, you're able to explain yourself and your approach and make the case that there's more to your success, as you just did, than fortuitously being in the right things at the right time. You explain that as crypto prices were increasing, you were trimming your positions in order to ensure that I reduce the risk for my copiers as much as possible, because at the end of the day, capital preservation is just as important as making gains. when you make those kind of noises, that does a lot, I think, to calm the nerves of potential copiers. And also, because your stock investments are centered around your circles of competence, such as healthcare and oil and gas. I think all of those things were at play in the Felix Falix video, and those are the reasons why he didn't discount you as he would others with similar statistical profiles. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think his analysis was, very fair. I think he's been following me for a while on eToro, and I think he sees that the amount of work that I actually put in to do analysis of different stocks in my portfolio and different assets as well, and the fact that I regularly communicate these to my copiers. It's important for me not only to provide calming words to my copiers. I think the best way to calm your copiers and make your copiers feel as comfortable as possible is to provide them with as much knowledge as possible. I see my role as a popular investor to not only provide passive income or profit for my copiers. Of course, this is important, but I understand that people come to eToro for many different reasons. And some people start copying popular investors as well so that they can learn from them and they can learn about the different stocks or assets in their portfolio. So I really try to get to know my copiers, but also provide them as much information as possible. I'm not just making investments on their behalf. I'm taking them on the whole investment journey with me and explaining my viewpoints.
Yes, well, that's very true. And we'll discuss your communications later on in much more detail. On your bio, you say, I won't add funds. To me, that's one of the best things any PI can say on their bio.
Yeah, so one of my core pillars of my journey as a popular investor is to be as copy friendly as possible. And I know Felix Falix obviously talks about this a lot in his videos as well. So I don't only make sure that I rebalance my portfolio on a regular basis, because we all know that copies actually happen based on the originally invested amount, not the compound increasing of stock prices, etc. Percentage in your portfolio. So I make sure that's rebalanced as much as possible so people get a more accurate copy. And the reason why I don't add funds to my popular investor account is because I backed myself from the start. I made sure that I had enough money in my eToro account to be able to satisfy all the eToro copy trading amounts and satisfy all different levels. So I did that. I always think about my copiers and what's best for my copiers. And I don't see an advantage for my copiers to add funds to my account, because I feel like it forces them to, add to their copies at the exact amount that I do in order to stay in sync. Many are not going to do this, and that causes them to fall out of sync with your portfolio. And for me, being a popular investor and my community as a whole, it's really important to me that I have satisfaction of my copiers for the long term. I have a really good retention rate and a relationship with my copiers. And I think that if I make my portfolio as copy friendly as possible, that my copiers are going to benefit from that in the long run. So I don't want to increase my funds so people increase the copies in order to get a short-term gain. I much prefer to make my copiers happy and then have a good long-term result together.
How about the risk score? Is your risk score fair?
I think it's very fair, actually. I think I'm, especially over the last few months, I've been at 5 pretty consistently. Occasionally it's got up to 6, but I think as I've obviously trimmed my crypto positions, I think 5 is a fair score. And I think over the long run, I'm likely to kind of move between a 4 to a 5.
Yeah, you're talking about average risk score. One of the rules of Copytraders Club is that risk score is max risk score. So you're between a 5 and a 6, even by that metric. It's very steady.
And no, that's correct. I mean, my long-term goal is to be a 4 or 5. Yeah.
Copier numbers. As of the day of recording, you're copied by 1,611 copiers. Assets under management, 2 to 5 million. The graph, as I look at it, is pretty much all growth and a little recent plateau, but no downward movement. It must be quite pleasing.
It is. It is very pleasing. So I've never actually been featured on the editor's choice, or I also don't show up in a lot of the copy search results as well. So a lot of my growth in terms of copier numbers have come from my regular posting on eToro, obviously my YouTube videos as well, and some other stuff that I also do. And I think generally I have a very good relationship with my copiers, and I think that there's a lot of word of mouth recommendations that occur. And I think it's allowed me to be able to grow my copiers in a more organic fashion, because what you see sometimes is you see someone get featured on Editor's Choice. They get a lot of copiers in a short amount of time, and then they're hit with a week or two bad weeks in the market, and then they lose a lot of those copiers. So I've been able to strongly retain my copier base, which is very, very pleasing.
Hope you're enjoying today's show. I'm sure you've subscribed already. If you are a successful copy trader, happy to share what you've learned, there's no need to have a public profile. Get in touch. The bigger the club, the better for you. So tell people on eToro about this show. Ask your PIs to come on. That way you will get to know them better. We build this club together. Communication has been mentioned a few times so far, Steven, and let's talk about that, because that is really one of your USPs. Really sets you apart from many PIs. And I think it's something that is going to become more and more a necessity for PIs. I've said it in previous episodes. I love a communicative PI. And I think that those that don't focus on it are really missing a trick. This is social investing, and engagement is very important. And you are really doing it as well as anyone I've come across so far in 3 main ways: your YouTube channel, your website, and your Discord group.
Yeah.
A lot of PIs have those 3 things. I haven't seen anyone who's quite so engaged directly with their copiers through those media, particularly your Discord group. You seem to be on it all the time, answering questions left, right, and center. A lot of people who have a Discord group pop in every now and then to say hi or share a link to their YouTube video, things like that. But you're really on there specifically answering individual questions a lot, as you do on your news feed on eToro also. So congratulations to you for that. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about your videos first of all. That mean-spirited Scot, Andrew Haddon, described you as looking slightly like a used car salesman on your website. That was very nice.
I was wearing a suit in a nice backdrop in Singapore.
That's right. I would say in your videos you come across more like a teacher who's trying to keep things simple for the kids to grasp. How else can we describe your videos to the listener? What else can they expect? They're quite simple. They're not snazzy. They're like lo-fi, it's fair to say. Turn on your camera, speak to camera, say everything you want, turn camera off, upload to YouTube.
Correct. Yeah. So I try to be as sincere as possible with my copiers. I understand that they all come from many different backgrounds. Some have some experience in investing. Some are absolutely brand new to investing, and they're all from different backgrounds, and they all have completely different jobs. And it's important for me that I speak to them at their level. So not only do I have to make the videos as sincere as possible, I also need to make them digestible and in ways that they can actually understand, but while also trying to learn as much as possible as well, because it goes back to this my whole ethos that I want to bring my copiers over the whole of the investment experience. So my YouTube videos is kind of split up into kind of two different areas at the moment. One is investor education videos, which I explain to them about some key concepts that they need to understand when they're investing. And the second one is more to do with my individual portfolio updates and what's happening in the investment world and in the economy. And I do that every single week. And I really see that as a huge differential to what you would get in the traditional hedge fund industry. You don't get a lot of opportunities like that to be able to get a video from your popular investor regularly on a weekly basis, explaining why they've made certain decisions and what their strategy is kind of moving forward and how they perform. So I kind of really see that as YouTube video as a key differentiator. I've used it mainly as an extra support service for my copiers and followers, not so much to draw external people into copying. I may at a later stage incorporate some areas, make the production value a little bit higher and in the future and look to draw new customers in, but it's mainly important really that I support my copiers.
And in so doing, there are some themes that you're keen to get across, that you're very approachable and that you're there for them and that you're of good temperament, you're calm, never act in a panic. Why is it important to emphasize those characteristics?
Because I think that people are investing not only in your skill for investing, but they're also investing in you as a person. So it's important that your copiers actually trust you as a person. And in my opinion, I think that probably 80% of investing is really about your temperament and how you react to things. I think that's extremely important. And not only having a strategy, but many people have a strategy, but they don't stick to it because of emotions. I always stick to my strategy and I stay very disciplined. And I think that instills trust in my copiers. And then obviously the other 20% I'm very diligent and I do a lot of due diligence on different assets and stocks all the time. Not only do I do that myself, but I write those analyses down for my copiers and people can actually really see the reasons why that I've put something into my portfolio.
There's another type of video I've seen on your channel, which could best be described as your community videos. You have these PI focus group videos where you have several Singapore-based PIs talking about the market environment. These include Amar Singh, Simone Risetto, fund manager Zek. Has this only been a virtual thing so far, or have you all met up for a few craft beers down at Brewworks in Clark Quay?
We have met up actually. So I've met quite a lot of the Singapore-based PIs. So I've met up with Mick Mullins. I think you've done a podcast with him in the past. Also with Theo Sanders, who's another popular investor. And then Simeone, Zachariah and Amar as well. We've all met up for beers at different times, and got to know each other. So it's good to really have a kind of community of PIs in Singapore.
Fantastic. Have you any other plans for building out that community or social events whenever COVID is a thing of the past?
Yeah, so we have been in lockdown for the last month or so. But yes, we do plan to meet up again. And at the moment, we are actually planning another focus group as well, which will talk about different elements of the economy. And I think it's really good because we all have very different backgrounds and experience. And I think we can all add in really good insights together as a collective. I think these videos are really good for our different followers and copy communities.
You mentioned your educational videos. Let me just give the listener an idea of what kind of subject you're dealing with there. 5 common mistakes new investors make when investing in the stock market. What is leverage? What is short selling? Dollar cost averaging. 5 ways to control your emotions when investing. And in that, you advise people not to check their accounts all the time. And you also talk about how you harnessed your emotions to buy crypto in the 2018 slump. You said you weren't comfortable doing so, but you were out there buying as much as you possibly could in order to ensure your financial freedom. You mentioned that earlier. Did you do so well during that time that you don't have to worry about income anymore?
I think it's provided me a element of financial freedom. So it allows me to be able to do what I want to do. And I'm very passionate about investing. I'm still young, so I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. And I think that there's many things that I want to do in not only in investment, but also in kind of teaching investment subjects, also some entrepreneurial things that I want to do as well. But I think by my success in investing, it's allowed me to have the time myself to do things that I want to do rather than be in the everyday corporate rat race.
And you say you're a full-time investor. Currently, does that mean only in eToro or?
On eToro, but also other things. I also have I have my own investments off eToro in other areas, stocks, real estate in other areas as well.
And how much of your time is dedicated to eToro?
A lot, actually, and I think that's why I spend a lot of time interacting with my community. I'd say over 50% of my time is in eToro at the moment.
Let's have a little look at your portfolio then, and we'll get a bit of an idea of what you have there.
Okay.
Unless things have changed from the moment I made my notes, your first 7 positions are crypto assets, and then we get into equities and commodities. Commodities include gold, silver, and cocoa. Some of the higher conviction equities are in differing geographies: Hong Kong, Germany, some Chinese ADRs, BABA, JD, and emerging markets ETF. And then there's a long list of stocks and ETFs, mainly in the US, as you say, tech and healthcare. Does that paint an adequate general picture of your portfolio?
It does. I think my core kind of theme has been around inflation. Obviously, in 2020, there was an unprecedented amount of money that had gone into the monetary supply in the form of stimulus, throughout the world. And I think it was pretty obvious that, especially when COVID started to recover and people started to spend again, that there was going to be a high level of inflation. And I think a lot of my assets actually are in my portfolio because of that reason. So I think that obviously Bitcoin as a scarce, hard asset, I think will play very well into the inflation narrative going forward long term. And the same with precious metals. As we have increased inflation, and I think as industries start to move again post-COVID, I think we're going to see a weakening of the US dollar. And I think a lot of kind of commodities, such as oil and precious metals, will increase over the time. So that they play an important part of my portfolio. I also think that eventually the Fed are going to have to do something in terms of trying to taper inflation. And I think that interest rates will eventually rise again. So you see an allocation in my portfolio of financial services and also insurance companies, which will do well when inflation actually increases. And also you see some stocks in my portfolio, especially to do in the Asian market, to do with the COVID recovery. So for example, I have a stock called Wynn Macau Casinos, that I think that there's been a lot of pent up demand for Chinese gamblers to go into Macau and go to the casinos. And I think that stocks which actually benefit from COVID reopening are going to do really well, as we've had really good progress on vaccinations, etc. So whereas 2020, I had more technology stocks in my portfolio because I felt that there was going to be a long period of time where people were working from home and reliant on technology. I still think they have a long-term future, but I've kept some of my technology stocks, but I've also rotated into those other areas as well. So we've seen a bit of an evolution of my portfolio as trends have changed.
Okay, let's talk historically. Other than crypto, why don't you tell us about your best investment?
Okay. If we're talking outside of crypto, one of them was actually an investment I made last year in a stock called Luckin Coffee, which is actually a Chinese coffee shop chain in China.
I did ask for your best investment.
Yes, because I was short.
Oh, hello.
I was short. I don't do a lot of short investments. I do sometimes when you have a particular opportunity that come up. But I saw that things were going really bad. Obviously, China was affected very first with the COVID pandemic. First of all, I knew that people weren't going to be going to coffee shops in China at the start of the pandemic. But also there had been a lot of reports about financial regulations, irregularities, and them basically fudging their numbers. So I actually took a short position on Luckin Coffee, and I actually closed it at a 90% profit. So it was very opportunistic. And I think that's probably why I highlighted that particular investment.
Very nice. And one of the other rules in Copytraders Club is you can't mention a big win without mentioning a big loss.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to go back to an investment that I made quite a while ago, and it was actually in an oil and gas company called Seadrill. It's a drilling company, and obviously I've got a lot of experience in oil and gas from my previous working life. And obviously oil prices were slumping at the time, and a lot of their rigs were off contract, and they were stacked and they weren't being used. But I felt that the price was really undervalued, and that when oil prices went back up and the rigs start to go back into action, that the stock price would soar. Unfortunately, I underestimated the financial difficulties that they were in and the amount of debt that they actually had, and they actually diluted the majority of shareholders. So there was a strong dilution. So if I look at my overall thesis of that investment, I think I was right in the key concepts, but I overlooked a key part of the investment, that they did have the ability to liquidate their investors and issue a huge amount of new shares. So yeah, I lost quite a lot of money on that trade. But as an investor, especially as a professional investor, I think this is going to happen from time to time. And again, it all goes back to trying to keep a cool, calm perspective about things and learn from those mistakes so you don't make them, you make them again.
Okay, so let's move on to your copiers now. What sort of copier should copy you?
I think somebody that has a long-term perspective. And I think that also it's very good for people to copy me that want a slightly different portfolio. So I do have some regular large stocks in my portfolio, but I also have a lot of different, diversification and different stocks in my portfolio from different regions, different sizes of companies. And I really think kind of out of the box on a lot of in my investments. So I think somebody who wants to reduce the correlation with other popular investors in their portfolio, I think that's important. Somebody obviously who wants to, grow their portfolio over time, and I think somebody that really wants to, learn from the whole experience.
And who's the wrong kind of person to copy you?
I think people that have a very short-term perspective, or people that want to get rich really quickly. And obviously, I think it's very important when investing to invest long-term. I also don't think if you're not interested in cryptocurrency at all, or you think that it doesn't have a future, it doesn't make much sense to copy me. And I think if I'm a kind of a medium to high in the terms of kind of my risk tolerances. So if you have a very low risk tolerance and that you can't handle volatility, then I think there's probably other better popular investors for you.
So speaking of that, what role should you play as a PI in a copier portfolio? And can you describe what you imagine the ideal portfolio is with you in it?
I think I always advise my copiers to have a balanced portfolio and as balanced as possible, and to not only look at results of popular investors. So really to dig into each popular investor's overall strategy and what assets they actually have in the portfolio and what different risks that they actually have. So an ideal portfolio, I guess, that had me in it would have a number of different popular investors in it as well, who are investing in different sectors, maybe some technology investors, some value investors, people that are involved in ETFs or Forex trading. And I think the position that my portfolio takes is kind of a multi-strategy approach. I'm not going to overlap with the majority of the popular investors. And I think that you're going to get a lot of different exposures to different sectors and geographical regions with my copy.
Yes, you mentioned diversification. That's a word that comes up all the time and often means different things to different people. You're diversified in a variety of ways. You've a large number of positions. You've got stocks, ETFs, crypto, commodities. So you've got asset class diversification. You have many geographies represented. So you have geographical diversification.
Yep.
That all makes me wonder, do you have many copiers that copy only you?
I do. I usually recommend to copy different portfolios and to spread your risk over different popular investors. But I do have some copiers who say that they, really trust me, and that because I have a good amount of diversification in the portfolio, that they want to only copy me, which is okay. But I'm of the belief that it's important to spread your risk out to a number of different popular investors.
It must be quite satisfying to think that copiers would have that level of faith in you for them to put their money behind you and you alone.
Yes, it does. I think I have a lot of trust from the community, from my copy community. And I think that's been really well reflected over the last kind of month or month and a half, as obviously there's been some downturn in the crypto markets. And I've managed to keep a very good copier retention rate. And I think a lot of that is to do with the trust that the copiers have in me, in my strategy, and they believe in me in the long term.
And because of the open lines of communication that you have with them, as we mentioned on Discord and on the feed.
Yeah.
If you've got a nervous copier or a copier who doesn't like the way things are going, it's a very different copier experience when that's happening and you just cannot get an answer from your PI compared to being able to fire a question into Discord and have an answer within a few hours from the man himself.
Yes, I respond very quickly, and I think one of the important thing is, and I think my copiers know, I don't just fill them with calming and soothing words in order to be able to keep my copiers. I don't do that at all, and I actually always back it up with real information. So why has something gone down? Why is this happening in the market? What's the news that's related to this? And I think, one, if they know the situation, they're going to react a lot calmer. I think that's really important. But if they also know that I'm on top of all of the information and know exactly what's happening and I have time to fully invest my time in this, then they really trust me with their investments. I get to know them all as people in the Discord group as well. I know where they live, I know where they work, and they are just. I think investments. I think it's very easy just to think in terms of number of copiers and assets under management. I don't think like that. I think of everybody as a person. Everybody has jobs. Everybody has families. And I think they're just trying to make their way in the world and trying to provide better for their families or for their life in the future. And I'm aware of that, and I'm really responsible when investing their money. And I think that they really appreciate the touch that I provide them as a popular investor that stays in really close contact with them and gets to know their lives. I mean, in Singapore, I've even been out for coffee or dinner with some of my copiers in Singapore. So they know that I will always go the extra mile for them.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. And I have to say, from what I've seen of your communications with your copiers, that's very much the case. It's not fluff. It's genuine communication and helpfulness and education and all of the things that you just said. So you're doing a great job on that front, no doubt.
I think the important thing is consistency. I think people can do things for short periods of time, occasionally inauthentically, but I think it's really important over the long term to do things consistently and people know that you're there. And that's what I plan to do.
Okay, now a couple of questions here as we begin to wind things up, which we may have touched on earlier. Specifically, if you were a copy trader, what would your approach be?
If I was a copy trader, I would be looking very carefully at what popular investors have in their portfolio. So obviously I have the advantage of knowing about investing. And I think I would not only look at results, I think results are important, but there's also a lot of context behind their results as well over time. So I would look at what's in the portfolio. And then just like I do with my own portfolio, I'd make sure that there wasn't a really high correlation of other popular investors or positions in my portfolio, that if a certain market went down, that it would affect the overall portfolio results. And I actually see this sometimes as a popular investor with other people's portfolio. If someone has an interest in a particular area of your portfolio, you tend to see that they have very similar popular investors with you in your portfolio, and you see the same names over and over again. So I think it's really important to make sure that you have different asset classes, different geographies, and different risk level approaches and really build up your popular investors from there. I don't think that you need to have a huge number of popular investors. I think if you have too many different popular investors, you can really kind of water down your results. And some of the popular investors who don't perform so well might drag the portfolio down. But I think it's important to have popular investors that you have real conviction in and have different assets and different asset and stock correlations. So I think it can be a number of different numbers, but I'd say kind of 5 to 6 different popular investors would be probably what I would be looking at if I was a popular investor. If I was a copier.
And just to pin you down to some names, what other PI would you say you know the best on a personal level?
On a personal level, I think it would have to be the popular investors in Singapore because I've met them in person. Obviously, it's not been easy to meet other popular investors in other geographies because of COVID. So I'd say the popular investor I probably met up the most has been Theo Sanders. I'm not sure if you've come across him. He's a popular investor on eToro. So I think I probably met him the most, but also Mick Mullins and Simeone Rosetto, fund manager Jung, and a few of those other ones. But I also have a lot of respect for a lot of the other popular investors as well on the platform. And I, quite often talk to them either over the eToro platform, in various posts or also in Telegram groups as well. So I have a lot of respect for some of the popular investors who have been there for a long time and produced consistent results, such as, Jay Nemesis and Wesley and some other popular investors as well.
Okay, well, hopefully when COVID is a thing of the past, you can build on these personal relationships.
Yes.
And also I was thinking, presumably you have plans to travel back to England to go to see the Bees in the Premier League?
Oh, I would absolutely love to. Never in my lifetime have I seen my club so high. I think I might get a nosebleed when I go to a game because I've never seen us in the Premier League. But yeah, I'd actually love a visit back to the UK when COVID resides. And I also can see my family as well, who I haven't seen for a long time.
Yeah, it's worth getting your jabs just to see Brentford in the Premier League. And they've got a nice, easy opener to the season. You saw that it's just the Gooners are visiting.
Yeah, just Arsenal. So we should be fine.
3 points straight away.
Yeah, 3 easy points, and hope Arsenal are not in a relegation battle.
Very good. Well, listen, thank you very much, Stephen. It's been great to chat to you, and I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me on your podcast. And it's I just want to say that your podcast is really great, and I think it's really good for the copy traders to have these resources to learn about copy trading, but also to learn more about each individual popular investor. So well done for all your efforts, and I wish you the best of luck in growing out your podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Stephen. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bees84 there, and we managed to get through that without falling back on any tired bee-related puns, despite the temptation. Some great guests lined up in the weeks ahead, and an exciting new format of episode coming shortly. That's all from me. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. Until next time we meet at Copytraders Club, I wish you many happy returns. Obviously, anything you hear in this podcast is for entertainment only, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just generic chit-chat. We don't know your individual circumstances, etc., and so forth.